So I think it's good we start with Surah Al-Fatiha. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين صدق الله العظيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعن الله ولا أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So this is the 10th part in our series discussing dua, discussing supplications, the supplicant and the etiquette of supplicating. As with other series of discussions that we have and have had, I always strongly recommend that previous parts are studied before continuing with this one, so we can avoid confusion, misunderstanding, invalid assumptions, and so on within the subject matter. This is because the nature of the subject matter, the style of discussion really does require that each part build up on the one that came before. So again, it's really strongly recommended that anyone consuming this, pause, go back and review the previous ones prior to coming to this one. Nevertheless, we will have a recap if I can get Salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So, in the previous session, we explored one of the most refined fruits of supplication, and that is contentment or rida. Not as detachment from pain or the denial of desire, but as a luminous trust born of intimacy with the divine. We traced how contentment grows out of qurb or closeness and uns, companionship, and how through repeated acts of sincere dua, sincere supplication, the soul is shaped until it no longer clings to outcomes, but rather to the one who ordains them. We saw that this contentment is not passivity. It is a yielding rooted in certainty. It is not born of indifference, but of insight. The mature believer, through constant supplication, learns to ask and then to surrender, to plead and then to trust, to knock and then to wait with a tranquil heart. Drawing on the Quranic address to the tranquil soul and nafs al-mutma'inna, we considered the example of Imam Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him, at Karbala, a soul entirely pleased with God and pleasing to him, enduring trials with serenity and dignity. This was not fatalism, but this was firm conviction that God's plan is always rooted in mercy, even when it bleeds. We then explored the intimate pairing between dua and taslim, that is supplication and surrender. One speaks and the other listens. One reaches and the other rests. Together they refine the soul, not necessarily by changing what happens, but by changing how the heart receives it. Through the whispers of the Imams, especially in Dua Abu Hamza, and the wisdom of the scholars, we saw that supplication reframes suffering, not as abandonment, but as a sacred summons, not as punishment, but as purification. The pain remains, but in turning to God, it becomes a means of elevation rather than despair. We also heard from the Prophet and the Imams that the richest of people are those who are content, not because they have everything, but because they want nothing more than what God has willed. And from the mystics, the Urafa, we learned that the purpose of dua is not to shape destiny, but to shape the soul. In the end, we saw that the true supplicant is not the one who always receives what they want, but the one who learns to want what God gives. And so we closed with a whisper, a prayer not for more, but for alignment. If you are pleased with me, then let me be pleased with everything you choose. Please give me a salawat and we proceed with this session.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So, from the very first breath of the Quran, the seeker is met with two names, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, the All-Merciful and the Especially Merciful. Before commandments are given, before the narrative unfolds, before the path is laid out, there is mercy. This is no accident. The Islamic worldview is not built upon fear, nor even justice, but upon mercy. Mercy is not simply one of God's attributes. It is the womb within the entire creation, within which the entire creation is formed. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, had declared in a Hadith Qudsi. Hadith Qudsi is something which Allah has said, which is not in Quran. It's in the form of a hadith, but it is something directly from Allah. And this is a Hadith Qudsi which is found in both the Shia and the Sunni sources. And in this, Prophet Muhammad quotes Allah, who says, "Indeed, my mercy has preceded my wrath." And again, like with all of these sessions, the references and footnotes are in the write-up. Everyone is welcome to review them. This divine mercy, rahmah, is not something that is merely given. It is something to be witnessed. It is this witnessing, this unveiling, that becomes possible through dua. The act of supplication is not only a cry for help or a request for change. It is an invitation to behold, to see, to sense, and to realize the rahmah of God in all its forms, in what is given and what is withheld, in what is immediate and what is delayed, in what comforts and what breaks. This is why every surah of the Quran, except one, opens with the Bismillah, and the Bismillah opens with al-Rahmah. As al-Dāʿī explains in Tafsir al-Mizan, the name al-Rahmah refers to God's universal mercy, that which encompasses believer and unbeliever, saint and sinner, atom and angel alike. Whereas al-Rahim is his special mercy, tender, refined, intimate, reserved for those who turn to him with yearning. Therefore, every act of dua begins with a turning not towards severity or judgment, but towards these twin oceans of compassion. And so the dua becomes a place not just where the soul requests mercy, but where it begins to perceive it. Just as the Quran declares in Surah Al-A'raf, the 7th Surah of Quran, chapter of the Heights, verse number 156, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, "My mercy encompasses all things. It encompasses the visible and the unseen. It runs beneath all trials. It veils all faults. It invites even before we call." And herein lies the foundation of our reflection. The greatest mercy may not be what is given after the dua, but the permission to call in the first place. In this, the 10th part of our journey, we will explore how dua unveils mercy, not just as a concept, but as a spiritual reality. We will see how the one who supplicates again and again comes to witness rahmah in the smallest moments and in the grandest trials, not always as comfort, but always as closeness. For the one who truly understands mercy, every delay is a whisper, every heartbreak is a door, and every unanswered request, a higher answer in disguise. This is why in Dua Kumayl, one of the most intimate and widely recited supplications from the al-Bayt, it opens not with a request for paradise or pardon, but with a call upon this very attribute. O God, I ask you by your mercy which encompasses all things. Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati wasi'at kulla shay. Before we ask for anything, we ask by his mercy, because to stand in its shade is itself the beginning of healing. Now, with his names upon our tongues and his mercy upon our path, let us continue. Please give me a salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So, the names of mercy are Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. And mercy, we're now going to try and look at mercy as the first door of divine recognition. Now, before the believer learns to speak, before the soul learns to ask, it is taught the names. And the first two names it meets are those that reveal not might or majesty, but mercy. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, the All-Merciful, the Especially Merciful. From the threshold of every Quranic chapter, the names Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim call to us, two facets of the same mercy, yet each holding a different light. With Ar-Rahman, the one whose mercy is vast and all-encompassing, and Ar-Rahim, the one whose mercy is continuous, intimate, and sustaining. As Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq explains, Ar-Rahman is a universal name applying to all creation, while Ar-Rahim is specific to the believers. This is echoed in the traditions and supplications of the al-Bayt. In Sahifa Sajjadiyya, the fourth Imam closes the first dua, and in fact many of the du'as, with the famous line, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, O most merciful of the merciful. And in Dua Iftitah, which we recite throughout the month of Ramadan, Imam Mahdi, may our souls be his ransom, taught us to say, O my God, you have permitted me to pray and call upon you. So listen to my words of praise and respond to my call, O the especially merciful. In these supplications, mercy is not merely requested, it is remembered, it is described, and it is invoked as a prelude to every other relationship with God. Imam Khomeini in Adab al-Salat, the disciplines of prayer, he says, invoking the names Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim at the start of every deed is to draw down God's mercy and favor. Through these names, the servant adorns himself with the hue of divine mercy and compassion. And it is by this doorway that he enters the presence of the divine. Even Mullah Sadra, in his metaphysical writings, notes that Ar-Rahman reflects the existential generosity of God, the bestowal of being itself, while Ar-Rahim governs the sustaining and guiding of the soul towards perfection. Therefore, the soul that frequently invokes these names through dua is not just engaging in ritual, it is drinking from the wellspring of divine tenderness. Through the repeated calling of these names, whether in the whispered moments of Dua Abu Hamza, the thunderous pleas of Dua Kumayl, or the quiet invocations of Quran, the soul begins to realize and recognize that God is not waiting to be convinced to show his mercy. He already is mercy. And again, in Quran, Surah Al-A'raf, 7th chapter of Quran, chapter of the heights, verse 156, Allah says, my mercy encompasses all things. And so every dua, even the one made with a trembling voice and an empty heart, begins not from distance, but from this certainty. To call upon Ar-Rahman is to say, even though I have nothing, I know you give. And to call upon Ar-Rahim is to say, even though I falter, I know you stay. So let us now look at supplication as an unveiling, not just a request. The mercy that was already there, and that dua just opened our eyes to it. Now, in the common view, dua is understood as an act of asking. A soul in need raises his hands or its hands towards the one who can fulfill. And while this is not incorrect, it is, however, incomplete. The deeper reality of dua is not that it brings mercy into existence, but that it unveils the mercy that has always been. As Sayyid ibn Tawus wrote in Iqbal al-Amal, and this is a paraphrase I've done from a number of sections. Again, all of this is in the references and footnotes in the write-up. Please review it. So Sayyid ibn Tawus says, the one who calls upon his Lord sincerely does not force the hand of mercy to move. He only removes the veil that was covering it from his sight. Mercy is not created by our cries. It is revealed through them. God does not wait to show mercy. He waits for the soul to see it. The Quran states unequivocally in Surah An-Nisa, the chapter of women, 4th chapter of Quran, verse number 28. God desires to lighten your burdens, for man was created weak. This divine irada, this desire to relieve us is not passive. It is constant, flowing like a stream. But we are often turned away. absorbed in noise, dulled by distractions. Dua is the turning back of the face, the lifting of the lid over the heart, the gentle removal of the veil that prevents us from recognizing the ever-present mercy of God. Imam Ali in Dua Kumayl whispers, "How many times, O my God, have you relieved my distress, lifted my burdens, corrected my faults, spread your mercy over me, and loosened the grip of trial upon my neck." Note, he says, you spread your mercy, not created it anew, but unfolded it. Please give me a salawat and we continue.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So now we need to understand that dua is a mirror. It is not a bargaining table. Imam Khomeini, again in Adab al-Salat, the disciplines of prayer, reflects that the purpose of dua is not to extract, but rather it is to transform. Imam Khomeini says, the sincere supplicant is not trying to pull down mercy from above. He is trying to climb towards it. Dua is the ascent of the soul, and mercy is not just a result. It is the air breathed along the way. Similarly, Mullah Sadra writes in Asfar al-Arba, dua teaches the soul to perceive mercy not as a reactive response, but as a mode of God's being. The more purified the soul, the more it sees every leaf, every silence, every delay as a mercy. The delay as a revelation of a deeper kind. In Uddat al-Dāʿī, Ibn Fahd al-Hilli, he says, the soul may think the response was delayed, but mercy was descending with every moment of supplication. This is why the Imams taught us to keep asking, not because God needed reminding, but because we needed realigning. The voice that cries in dua is not the voice of a beggar at the door of a reluctant king. It is the cry of the child calling out to a parent who is already running towards them. And Allah in Quran, we know this. Allah in Quran in Surah Ghafir, the chapter of the forgiver, 40th chapter of Quran, verse number 60, he says, call upon me, I will respond to you. The promise that Allah makes is not that I might answer. The promise is I will answer. But what is given may not always be what was asked. And that too is mercy. And we also need to understand that the mercy of being allowed to call when the permission to pray is itself the answer. Before any words are uttered, before the hands are raised, and before the heart even knows what it needs, the greatest mercy has already occurred. You are allowed to turn to him. Imam Ali says in Nahj Balagha, if God inspires you to remember him, know that he intends to show you mercy. This is the mercy before mercy, the invitation itself. And in his will, Imam Ali says to Imam Hassan, again in Nahj Balagha, he has permitted you to call upon him, guaranteed you the response, and commanded you to ask of him so that he may give you. In other words, you were invited. In a world filled with noise and negligence, if your heart remembers God, even briefly, it is already a sign of his mercy touching you. The one who is given the tawfiq, the divinely granted success and ability to turn even once, has already been touched by grace. Imam Baqir is reported to have said, and this is from Al-Kafi, again, all the references, citations are all in the write-up. I strongly encourage everyone to take a look at them. So Imam Baqir, he says, there is nothing more beloved to God than to be asked, and no one more detested than the one who is too proud to worship him. The opportunity to ask is not a right, it is a gift. And permission is actually the first response. Sayyid ibn Tawus writes in Iqbal al-Amal. And again, this is paraphrased from multiple sections and segments of Iqbal. References again are in the write-up. Sayyid ibn Tawus says, when God inspires me to supplicate, I tremble in awe, for I know that God has lifted the veil between me and him, and I do not know what decree will follow. To turn to supplication is a key granted to the servant, and every key is only given for a door to be opened, and every door leads to a known place. And this also echoes a line found in Dua Abu Hamza al-Thumali, where we are taught, you are the one who opened the door of supplication to me out of your majesty, and you named yourself the hearer out of generosity toward me. To call upon him is not a merit of the servant, it is a mercy from the master. The mercy of being known, not just heard. When the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, was asked, is our Lord near so we whisper to him, or far so we must call out loud? The verse was revealed. This is verse number 186 of Surah Baqarah, second chapter of the Quran, the chapter of the cow. And the verse says, and when my servants ask you about me, I am indeed near. I respond to the caller when he calls upon me. The mercy was not only in the response, but in the fact that he said, I am near. No intercessor needed. No distance to bridge. Only turning. To be given the chance to whisper, oh God, is already a sign that he has drawn near to you and made you feel it. Please give me a salawat and we continue.
اللهم صل على
اللهم صل على
محمد
محمد
وآل محمد.
وعجل فرجه.
So now let us look at dua as an act of mercy upon the soul, healing, cleansing, and drawing near, even when nothing seemingly changes. Dua is often seen as a means to an end, a tool to secure a result, to change a situation, to obtain relief. But for the one who walks deeper into the inner chambers, something far more transformative is revealed. Dua is itself a mercy, not because of what it brings, but because of what it does to the soul. In Uddat al-Dāʿī, Ibn Fahd al-Hilli, he writes, supplication in itself is worship and a means of nearness to God. It is a cause for disciplining the soul and reforming the inner self. Even when no external change takes place, something deep within the soul is being shaped. Trust replaces fear. Serenity replaces panic. And the heart is softened in the warmth of divine attention. And the soul is not left unattended. Imam Mahdi, may our souls be his ransom, in Dua al-iftitah, he says, how many times have you relieved my grief, lightened my sorrows, removed my hardships, spread your mercy and loosened the grip of affliction? Each of these blessings begins not with outward change, but with inner softening. Imam Musa al-Kazim has said, how great is the aid that a believer finds in hardship through supplication. Even when the situation remains unchanged and the soul is transformed. In the presence of the beloved, we learn from Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi, may God rest his pure soul, the purpose of supplication is not to remove hardship. It is to make the soul capable of receiving it with meaning, dignity, and nearness to the divine. This is the hidden mercy, that God allows the soul to break, but not alone. And dua also cleanses the heart from bitterness and from fear. Imam Ali has said, and this is from Ghurur al-Hikam, supplication is the key to mercy and the lamp in darkness. It softens the soul. It draws out bitterness. It provides release for grief, but not in the manner of venting frustration. Rather, dua is how the heart speaks to its creator without shame. The very act of expressing is healing. Imam Sadiq is reported to have said, "Whoever remembers the All-Merciful abundantly in this world shall behold him with a radiant face in the hereafter." And remembrance, especially when expressed through dua, clears away the clouds from the mirror of the heart. And there is healing even in delay. Imam Baqir has taught us the response to a supplication may be delayed so that the supplicant remains longer in devotion, draws nearer in position, and gains greater reward. What we perceive as waiting is often healing. So even when the request remains unfulfilled, even when the pain remains, even when the situation does not shift, the soul has already been touched. And that touch, subtle, internal, and invisible, is one of the most intimate forms of rahmah. Mercy in the delay and mercy in the denial. When the withholding is a greater answer than the giving. Now, we are taught from childhood to see blessings as things that arrive. The answered prayer, the open door, the fulfilled request. But in the school of dua, the soul begins to learn something significantly deeper. The mercy of God is not always in what is granted. Sometimes it is in what is withheld. Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him, has said, "Whoever is content with God's decree does not ask him to hasten punishment nor delay blessing." To be content does not mean to stop asking. It means to trust that even the delay is wrapped in mercy. And another important point, dua is never rejected. It is reconfigured. Again, Imam Sadiq teaches us, supplication repels affliction, brings down provision. Indeed, affliction may descend, and it is met by supplication, and they wrestle until the day of judgment. This wrestling may look to the human eye like an unanswered prayer, but to the eye of Tawheed, it is a hidden mercy at work. And delays are invitations to stay in his presence. Again, Ibn Fahd al-Hilli writes in Uddat al-Dāʿī, perhaps he delays the response in order to prolong your intimate conversation, so that in the delay there is greater mercy than in an immediate answer. And this reflects the wisdom of Dua Iftitah, in which our beloved Imam al-Hujjah, may our souls be his ransom, teaches us, perhaps that which was delayed from me is better for me, because you know the outcome of all things. God's withholding is not neglect. It is in fact precision. In the Quran, in Surah Baqarah, second chapter of the Quran, chapter of the cow, verse number 216, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, "It may be that you dislike something while it is good for you, and you love something while it is bad for you, and God knows while you do not." Now, Ayatollah Jawadi Amali, commenting on this verse in Tafsir Tasneem, he says, recognizing the limits of their own understanding, the most refined souls are those who learn to recognize God's mercy not only in ease, but in withholding. The believer does not merely accept delay, he discovers meaning within it. And there is a hidden mercy of not being answered. Imam Sadiq says, a time will come upon the people when none will be saved except the one who supplicates like the drowning man. But even the drowning man must learn, sometimes the hand of rescue is not immediate, because the soul must first realize it was not drowning in hardship, but it was drowning in forgetfulness, in ghifla, in negligence. And this is why Sayyid ibn Tawus, again, he says in Iqbal al-A'mal, and again, this is paraphrased from a number of related sections, primarily related to Dua Kumayl and the Nights of Qadr, and the references are in the write-up, like I've said. Sayyid ibn Tawus, he says, the unanswered prayer the unanswered prayer may be the greatest of answered ones. For it kept you knocking, hoping, waiting, and remembering. And what mercy is greater than not being forgotten by God? So now can I have a salawat and we move on to the next section?
اللهم صل على
صل على محمد
محمد عجل فرجهم.
So now let's have a look at some stories from the Quran where mercy is unveiled through dua. There's a number of them that we can look at. So the first one, when the trial becomes the throne of intimacy. Throughout the Quran, the mercy of God is not always revealed in the ease of the prophets, but often in their dua within affliction. Their lives were not devoid of pain, but full of presence within pain. Their supplications teach us that even the hardest of trials become gardens of nearness when illuminated by the light of sincere calling. So the first example we have is Prophet Jonah, Yunus, and the mercy of the depths. Cast into the ocean and swallowed by a whale, Prophet Yunus, peace and blessings be upon him, found not abandonment, but awakening. His dua is amongst the most well-known. And just the last portion of it, he says, "There is no God but you. Glory be to you. Indeed, I was of the wrongdoers." And this is, of course, from Surah Anbiya, the chapter of the prophets, 21st chapter of the Quran, verse 87. And the Quran confirms that had he not called upon God in that darkness, he would have remained in the belly of that fish until the day they are all resurrected. And that is from Surah Safat, 37th chapter of the Quran, the chapter of the Rangers, verse 144. It was dua, not a change in situation, that was counted as salvation. And these are really nuanced and important points, but I want everyone to really pay attention. It was the dua, not the change in situation, that counted as the salvation. The second example is Prophet Joseph, Yusuf, and the mercy of the prison. So imprisoned for a crime he did not commit, Prophet Yusuf, peace and blessings be upon him, turned not bitter, but more deeply towards God. And in Surah Yusuf, 12th chapter of the Quran, the chapter of Joseph, verse number 33, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he quotes Nabi Yusuf, saying, "My Lord, the prison is dearer to me than what they call me to." His dua was not for freedom alone, but for protection from temptation and closeness to God over comfort. The mercy was not only in his eventual release, but in the sanctuary of his soul. Another example is Prophet Zechariah, and the mercy in a whispered hope. Old, childless, and surrounded by silence, Prophet Zechariah, peace and blessings be upon him, whispered to Allah, saying, and this is from Surah Anbiya, 21st chapter of the Quran, chapter of the Prophets, verse number 89. Prophet Zechariah says, and Allah quotes him, "My Lord, do not leave me alone, yani do not leave me childless, though you are the best of inheritors." The mercy was not only in Yahya or John the Baptist's birth, but in the hope that was never extinguished. His dua came not from despair, but from trust. Then you have Sayyidina Maryam, Saint Mary, the mercy in labor and solitude. In her most difficult, most painful moment, laboring alone, ashamed and afraid, Sayyidina Maryam, peace and blessings be upon her, received divine assurance. And this is from the chapter of Saint Mary, Surah Maryam, 19th chapter of the Quran, verse 25, where Allah Ta'ala tells Sayyidina Maryam, "Shake the trunk of that palm tree toward you, it will drop fresh dates upon you." Even in agony, dua was answered not with luxury, but with what she needed most: provision, dignity, and companionship through the unseen. We then have Prophet Job, Ayub, the mercy in patience. Perhaps the most powerful testament, actually, is Prophet Ayub, peace and blessings be upon him. After years of affliction, illness, and loss, he finally cried out, and this is again from Surah Anbiya, the chapter of the Prophets, 21st chapter of Quran, verse number 83. Allah quotes Nabi Ayyub as saying, "Indeed, adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful." SubhanAllah, you think about this. He did not ask for healing. He simply stated his pain and praised God's mercy, and that was enough. These stories show us that mercy is not always rescue. Sometimes it is endurance. Mercy is not always change. Sometimes it is constancy. Mercy is not always what we wanted, but always what we needed. As Imam Khomeini writes in Adab as-Salat, the disciplines of prayer, God does not measure mercy by the movement of events, but by the movement of hearts towards him. Please give me a salawat and we continue.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So when the soul witnesses mercy, the veils lift and the heart knows. At the heart of dua lies not merely a request, but a meeting. Not just a hope for change, but a witnessing of the one who never left, the one whose mercy was there before we even called. The soul that continues to knock, even in darkness, begins to see what cannot be seen with the eyes. Imam Zayn al-Abideen whispers in Dua Abu Hamza, "I do not think you would turn me away from a need for which I have spent my life begging you." Such words are not spoken from certainty of outcome, but from certainty of mercy. And the witnessing is internal before it is external. Mullah Sadra writes in Asfar al-Arba again, "The realities of divine mercy are first unveiled in the soul before they ever appear in the world. The eye of the heart sees long before the eye of the body." Dua then is not about receiving what we ask, but about becoming someone who sees the mercy already given. We have the example of the Prophet's witnessing in the cave. When the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and his family were in the cave of Thawr when they were making hijrah, they took refuge in a cave known as the cave of Thawr. Dangers were all around, and the Prophet was with Abu Bakr in the cave. Abu Bakr, apparently, according to many of the historical narratives, Sunni and Shia, was concerned, he was worried, he was scared. At that point, Allah sent revelation to Prophet Muhammad, and this is from Surah Tawbah, 9th chapter of the Quran, verse number 40. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, he inspired Prophet Muhammad to say, "Do not grieve, indeed God is with us." This is the true witnessing of mercy, to know that he is near, even when no help has arrived yet. You have an example of Imam al-Rida and the mercy of calling. Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, peace and blessings be upon him, is reported to have said, "Supplication is nearness, and after nearness there is nothing more." When the soul realizes that to call upon God is the mercy, is the closeness, is the elevation, then it no longer waits for signs, it becomes a sign. Mercy becomes the air that the soul breathes. Dua reframes everything. Hardship is no longer punishment, but purification. Delay is no longer abandonment, but preparation. Silence is no longer absence, but invitation. The dua of the Gnostics, the Urafa, the mystics of the al-Bayt, and the lovers of God become not a means to get something, but a way to see something. "O Lord, you were the answer before I even asked. You were the mercy before I knew what mercy meant." And so the soul says, "O Lord, how sweet is your name upon my tongue, and how pure is your remembrance in my heart." And this particular piece is, it's inspired by Dua Arafah, but it's not from Dua Arafah. But Dua Arafah has something very similar. It has witnessed the mercy not just in speech, but in silence, not just in receiving, but in seeking, not just in change, but in presence. Please give me a salawat and we can move to the conclusion.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So mercy was always there.
Pray,
In this 10th part of our journey,
sing, yes. Say,
in this 10th part of our journey, we have not explored mercy as a concept, but as a witnessing. We saw how the Quran begins with mercy, how the divine names of Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim are more than descriptions. They are invitations to perceive the world differently. We reflected on how mercy is not always felt in ease or in fulfillment, but often hidden in delay, in denial, in silence, or in solitude. We listen to the echoes of this mercy in the whispers of the prophets, in the whale, in the prison, in the cave, and the cradle. And in each case, the mercy of God was not something that came after dua, but something that was unveiled through dua. Dua, therefore, becomes more than a request. It becomes the lens by which the soul learns to see that my Lord was merciful to me before I even called, and it was his mercy that made me call at all. As Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, peace and blessings be upon him, says, and this is from Nahj Balagha, his mercy has overcome his wrath, and his forgiveness has preceded his punishment. May we be among those who do not ask for mercy, but who learn to see it in every moment, every breath, every delay, and every answered or unanswered prayer. If I can get a salawat, we can then have the supplication.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So this is again part of our Whispers Beneath the Throne series, and this supplication is on witnessing mercy and longing for the one who embodies it. In your name, O God, the infinitely merciful, the endlessly compassionate, the one whose mercy embraces before we ask and endures even when we forget. O you whose rahmah descended before wrath, whose kindness clothed us before we were aware of need, whose love called us into being and has never stopped calling. I call upon you, not because I have seen all of your mercy, but because what I have seen has made me long to see more. I call upon you not as one who deserves, but as one who has come to realize that even calling you was a mercy from you. O Lord of the prophets, the one who was with Adam in his weeping, the one who was with Noah in his ark, the one who was with Abraham in the fire, with Moses on the mountain, with Jesus in the cradle, and with Muhammad, your beloved, in every moment of his sorrow and joy. Send your boundless blessings upon Muhammad, the mercy sent to all worlds, and upon his family, the pure, the patient, the radiant, the wronged, those through whom your mercy was taught, tasted, and made tangible. O my Lord, teach me to see your mercy not only in gifts, but in the waiting, in unanswered prayers, in changed paths, in closed doors. Let me witness the subtle mercy hidden in your decree, and trust that even in silence you are speaking to my soul. O my sustainer, do not let my tongue praise your mercy while my heart doubts it. Do not let my limbs worship you while my soul turns away. Soften my heart until it melts in your nearness, and cleanse my sight until I recognize you in every delay and every detour and every denial. And O God, do not let me forget the greatest sign of your mercy, the one whom you have veiled from the world out of wisdom and care, the son of Fatima, the awaited one, the Mahdi, may our souls be his ransom. O God, this world groans beneath the weight of injustice, and every page of history cries out for his return. Tyranny spreads, truth is mocked, the innocents are slaughtered. And we know, O Lord, that your mercy can turn this tide. Let our longing not be words but preparation. Let our love not be slogans but striving. Let us be among those who are not only awaiting him, but are worthy of being awaited by him. Give us the tawfiq to purify our hearts, to awaken our communities, to defend truth, uphold justice, serve your cause, and hasten the return of your proof. The one who will fill the earth with equity, as it is now filled with cruelty and darkness. O most merciful of the merciful, do not make our eyes dry in this wait. Do not make our lives meaningless in this era. And when he returns, let us be with him, alive in body or in prayer, standing by his side. O my Lord, bless Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and never let me forget that even now, even here, your mercy is already upon me. وآخر الدعوان أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.